It's great when you come to these conferences and someone's talking about, the latest technology. Is it good? Is it working? Thanks, Jim. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to talk about a technology that is, now more than 4 years old. OFDMA. I'm not going to stay here, sorry. I'm going to be me. I'm going to talk about OFDMA, and I'm going to literally talk about 3 questions. What is it? How does it work? Is it worth it? I'm going to do the first 2 questions quickly, so you'll have to try and keep up, and then we'll spend a bit more time on the last question. What is OFDMA? Let's talk about, first of all, OFDM. I hope everybody knows what OFDM is, but OFDM we've had in Wi-Fi for many, many years, and what we know about OFDM is, if we take a 20 megahertz channel, OFDMA splits that up into 64 subcarriers. You can almost think of them as small little channels. And we then modulate and send data on each of those subcarriers. Those subcarriers are 312 kilohertz wide. This is what that looks like on a spectrum analyzer. This is the Aronia spectrum analyzer. It's a real-time spectrum analyzer capturing a 40 megahertz channel in real time. And what we can see here, you can literally count the individual subcarriers. There is 108 data and 6 pilot subcarriers in a 40 megahertz channel. And if you literally look at this image, you can count and see each individual subcarrier, which I think is quite cool. Okay, but that's OFDM. Not what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about OFDMA. OFDMA is a multi-user technology which we got with the 802.11ax standard. And a little bit like OFDM, it is a frequency division technology. It takes a channel and it subdivides it into smaller sections. But instead of 312 kilohertz, they go down to 78.125 kilohertz wide. So these are smaller subcarriers. And because they're smaller, we give them another name. We call them tones. Don't ask me why. That is what we do. Okay? So they are tones now, and we get a lot more of them. Okay, because they're smaller, we can now fit into a 20 megahertz channel. As you'll see on this slide, we can fit 256 of these tones into a 20 megahertz channel. Then what we can do with these little tones is we can put groups of them together to create something we call a resource unit. And this is where the multi-user element comes in. With the multi-user element, I can take one of these resource units, which is just a collection of tones, and say, I'm going to assign this section to you, Keith. And I'm going to assign another section to someone else, maybe Andreas, and I'm going to set another section to someone else. And so we split the channel up, and we assign little chunks of the channel to different users. Make sense? And I can therefore send data at the same time to multiple users. And it also works in the reverse. I can give you an allocation of the channel for you to send to me. And these resource units can be different sizes. We can have 26 tone RUs, 26 tones in an RU, 52 tones. We can have 106 tones, or we can use the entire 20 meg channel as an RU as well. As at that time, we're not doing OFDMA because there's not multi-users involved. We're just doing OFDM with smaller subcarriers, which we call tones. So when we're using the full channel, it is just OFDM. We'll just be using a lot smaller subcarriers. So if we look at that on a spectrum analyzer, this is what it looks like. It's a bit harder now to count the different tones, isn't it? Because they're so small. You can sort of see them, but I wouldn't want to sit and count every single one of them. Okay? When we do OFDMA, it's when we're going to take that channel, and we're going to start splitting it up across multiple users. So it looks a little bit like this. We are going to assign a number of tones to device A. That might be 52 tones. I'm going to assign another 52 tones to device B. And then there's in the middle of the channel, either side of the null frequent tones that are in the middle, we actually have a 26-tone RU, which is 13 and 13 put together. So I'm going to assign that to device C. The second half of the channel, we're going to assign 108 tones to. And that's how we split up the tones. What does that look like in a spectrum analyzer? This is how it may look. Now, this is just 3 clients, but you can see that the channel is being split across 3 different clients. And one client has got half the channel, and the other 2 clients are sharing the other half. That's what OFDMA is. Let's talk about how does it work. Okay? So how does it work? Well, one of the key pieces of information when we're talking about how it works is 802.11ax introduced 4 new physical layer frame formats for us to make all of this work. So I'm going to not talk in too much detail about them. If you want to learn more detail, I would suggest maybe taking a CWAP class. This is really referenced, but let me just tell you what they are. Okay, the very top one, which is called a HE, high efficiency, that's what 802.11ax defines, high efficiency single user PPDU, physical layer protocol data unit. Okay, this is when AX is doing just OFDM. It's using the entire channel to one user, and all those tones are being assigned to just one user. So when we're doing standard OFDM, that's the top frame format that we use. The second one is the HE multi-user PPDU. This is multi-user now, and it is what we do when we are doing downlink OFDMA. So downlink from the AP to multiple clients. I'm going to split my channel up. It is a single transmission, but I'm sending different data on different chunks of that channel to different, destined for different people. Okay? The next one I'm going to talk about is actually the 4th one on this slide. It is called a HE-TB, that's trigger-based PPDU. This is for uplink OFDMA. So when I want multiple stations to send different data to me, it's triggered based because I'm going to send another frame before this. It's triggering stations to send data to me. And I literally say, hey, you can have this little bit of the channel, you get this section, you get the final section. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. I send a trigger frame. And then you can all use this frame format to individually send frames, but just on a smaller section of the channel. So I actually receive 3 of these frames. Does that make sense? So that's a TB frame format. The middle one, which is the HEER single user PPDU, I've never seen anyone implement, but it's a part of AX for getting, it was an extended range. It was meant to literally give extended range, but I don't think it really gets used. And it's not really part of OFDMA, so we're not going to talk about it. Let's quickly look at the 2 transmit opportunities then for doing both downlink and uplink OFDMA. So on this first slide, what you're seeing is downlink OFDMA. And the way this works, quite simply, is we have a multi-user RTS frame. This is a request to send frame, and it is going out to multiple users. It's a special new RTS frame, and it's basically saying, hey, can I send data to all the clients I want to send a multi-user frame to? And I will receive back 3 separate CTS frames, if all works well. Having received that back, I will then send my multi-user frame. So I will have data on different chunks of the channel for different users, and I should get back what we call a trigger-based block acknowledgement, a trigger-based acknowledgement back from every user. Okay, and that's how we do downlink. Uplink works a little bit different. We will send a trigger frame, we call it a basic trigger frame, and that trigger frame, inside the trigger frame, I specify which stations I'm allowing to send data to me, and I say which part of the channel you get. Okay, and that is defined in that trigger frame. And then those stations are allowed to transmit to me on the bit of the channel I've just assigned them. And once I receive all that data, I will then send a multi-station block hack in response. So I know what you're all thinking. Peter's talking. Just show us what it looks like in the protocol, yeah? Well, here's what the packets look like. This is roughly what I'm not going to go into loads of detail then, but some of the things you're going to see if you're capturing OFDMA. You will see, well, part of AX is you get different guard intervals. So you'll see different guard intervals used. You will see different tones used, different bits of resource units. So we've got 106 tone RU this frame has been sent with. We'll see 224 tone RUs, you'll see different RU values used, and the different frame formats as a HE single user PPDU, a HE trigger-based one, a multi-user one. So you're going to start to see different frame formats in your captures. Now, I'm not really here to talk about protocol OFDMA packet capture. I have spoke about it before, and if you at another WLPC, so if you Google it online, the future of analysis was a talk when I talked about how could we actually capture all this data. What I want to spend the rest of the time talking about is OFDMA worth it? We now know what it is, we know how it works. Is it any benefit? Well, 4 years ago, I wanted to understand its question, and I did some testing. And I presented the results actually at the WLPC, and these were the results 4 years ago I got. I had 6 laptops, and the AX was only just out when I did this testing. It was like brand new. I'm not even sure AX was actually published. I think it was all AX stuff, and I got some chipsets, I put them in my laptops, and I did some testing. And when I just did single client, AX delivered me more throughput than AC. I was testing AC against AX. And that's, I would expect that. We have 2 new MCS raced with AX, 10 and 11, using 1024 QAM. So I think that benefit was giving me more throughput. But obviously, single client, I'm just using OFDM. When I got to multiple clients, this is 4 years ago, AC, the aggregate throughput, was always more than OFDMA. Well, with AX, which was interesting. These is just the results in a bar graph. You can see that one client, AX, performed better. When I had 3 or 6, I had AC doing better. So when it was doing the OFDMA, it didn't seem to be providing as much aggregate throughput. So what about now? We're 4 years on, have things approved. Because back then, the scheduling algorithms were new. There was a lot of, with new technology, it doesn't always perform how we want it to. So what about now? I wanted to do some more testing. Now, the first thing is, testing takes a lot of time, okay? And it's not always easy to get some of this stuff to work. How do you make your devices do OFDMA? There's no checkbox. It either does it if it decides it wants to do it, or it doesn't do it. So when I was doing this recent testing, this is sort of what I found. When I was doing downlink, I was doing speed test, downlink, uplink. It was just doing OFDM. But when I did uplink, it started doing OFDMA. Why? I don't know. But that's what I found, and it was consistent. I could get OFDMA to work uplink, downlink, it just seemed to do OFDM. Okay? So the results I was really interested in were the uplink results, because I was trying to look at compared to 2 actually OFDM. So I was literally, my testing was taking my clients, running them in AC, and then turning AX off, on and off on the AP. So I did the same tests with AX off as with it on. What did I find? Well, with one client, very similar to the last time, AX was better than AC. It's got the higher modulation methods, I would expect that. Multiple clients, 3 clients. It was not as clear. I'm not sure who the winner was out of the tests I did. Sometimes AC seemed to perform better, sometimes AX. I would say they were about the same. 4 clients, I couldn't really distinguish in the testing I did any real difference. This is looking at aggregate throughput while doing OFDMA. And then 5 clients was very similar. So in fact, when I looked at all my results together, I wouldn't want to say from an aggregate throughput point of view that it's any better or any worse now. It seemed to be 4 years ago that it was definitely worse. So I think things have improved. I'm just not sure I can say from an aggregate throughput point of view it's any better, okay? But I wanted to know a bit more, okay, because that's just looking at aggregate throughput, okay? So the next thing I want to know is, well, how was the distribution up between each of the clients? So when I looked at 3 clients, okay, it was interesting. 3 clients using OFDM, look at the throughput values, 75.2, 87.2, 83.1. They're all very similar. It split the time reasonably equally amongst the clients because only one of them's transmitting at any one time, but they're always getting the full. I was using 80 megahertz wide channels for that. Okay. When I looked at OFDMA, we look on my spectrum analyzer, you can see one client is getting half the channel, a full 20 megahertz, and the other 2 clients are splitting the other 20 meg. And we see that reflected in the throughput that the clients got. One got 119 megabits. I suspect that was the one getting half the channel, and the other 2 got around 50, 59 and 52. So it's interesting that maybe my aggregate throughput is similar, but my distribution across my clients was not. And who makes the decision on who gets half the channel or not? It's a magic on a chipset. Now, when we did 4 clients, they all got about the same, and this is what it looked like. 4 clients, it split the channel equally, because it can, because there's only 4. Okay? I was like, okay, that's great. And when I looked at the throughput, it was about equal to. What about 5? This is what 5 looked like. Hang on, that's very similar to 4. I don't know why it was doing it like that. It was. So this clearly, and then when one finished, and one of the clients took the whole amount up. So how it was splitting that up in time, I'm not too sure. But what did the actual per client throughputs look like? They were quite different. I've got a 58.6 megabits per second. I've got a 43.5, an 88.5, a 19.8 per guy, and a 33.1. So there's someone getting 88.5 and someone getting 19.8. It was very interesting, I thought. I can't explain exactly why. So that's looking at throughput. And when I presented my results 4 years ago, and when I presented some of these results earlier in the year in Manchester, I got a question, and it's a question I always get, is that AX isn't about throughput. It is about efficiency. Okay? So you may not get as much throughput, but it's all about being more efficient. And I always said, well, how do you measure efficiency? Because it's difficult, isn't it? Surely if I've got more aggregate throughput, am I not being more efficient? But here's the argument against it. The argument against it is, but it's more about latency than throughput. So if I've got a voice client, I want that to experience less latency. Okay. So I was like, okay, can I test that? Can I test whether I am going to get better performance as a voice client in an AX environment? That is a fair question. So is it efficient? Is it really efficient? Well, this was a test I came up with. And I had used IX Chariot. For those people that don't know, it allows you to simulate traffic on multiple endpoints across a network. So I had three devices that were doing high performance TCP traffic. That is one of the traffic profiles IX Chariot has. It's just sending lots of TCP data. And then I had one client doing G711A voice traffic, okay? And across my network. And again, I render tests using AC and an AX. Same AP, excuse me. Same access point, same network, I just switched AX off, turned it back on. And I render test 10 times on each thing. This is the sort of results you get in IX Chariot, and the data I was interested in was I was looking at up here, I'm looking at the voice traffic. I didn't really analyze the data, because I was interested in how does the voice client perform. And you can see it gives me by slots, average milliseconds in jitter, one-way delay. It gives me also some QoS readings as well. So it gives me MOTS scores and something called R factor, if you know what the R value is. It's another way of measuring voice quality. So they were the metrics I was interested in the testing. Okay, let's look at the results. Are these significant results? I did 20 tests, 10 AC, 10 AX. If this is going to be really significant, I probably need to do a lot more testing. Testing takes a lot of time. It's quite expensive. I work for myself. If I'm not working, I'm not earning money. So I would love to do more testing. But I'm going to show you at least what I've got and whether I think there's something significant going on here. First of all, BICE lost. I don't really have anything conclusive to say about BICE lots. Both tests, lots BICE, it seemed a bit random. But when we talked about BICE lots, we were talking somewhere, one test lots nothing. But other tests, I've put it in BICE, but when I worked it out in terms of packets, we lost somewhere between normally 2 to 4 packets each test. And it didn't really seem to matter which platform. So that wasn't a helpful metric. What about one-way delay? Now, one-way delay I thought was a bit more interesting. If we look at the orange line, which is AX, it feels like it's more consistent, okay? Whereas, although the one-way delay could be quite good with AC, it sometimes spiked up much higher. Okay, I was getting results that weren't good, which I just were not getting with AX. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. Let's have a look at jitter. And jitter was a similar story. The jitter was consistently good with AX, but sometimes not very good with AC. Sometimes the results were very similar. Sometimes I got a different result. And I thought, that's really interesting. I wonder what this does to the quality metric. Now, if you've never looked at QoS metrics before, just this table is really here for reference. But MOTS, which stands for Mean Opinion Score, is a voice quality metric that's been used by telcos for many years. But it is a opinion score. How they originally did it was they would put 100 people in a room, and they would give you, they'd play you a voice call, and you would have to rate it 1 to 5. And then they took the mean of all those 100 people, and that was the score. Now, in computers, we don't have 100 people listening to our voice calls all telling us different scores. So we have to calculate it based upon some metrics which affect voice calls. And that's what R factor does. R factor looks at things like jitter, delay, and various other factors, and it goes okay. And packet loss it looks at, and then it comes up with a reading. And then what we can do is we can map R factor to MOTS. Someone's worked out a mapping, and you can also get a MOTS score. But one's mapped from the other, basically. So there's two different sort of metrics to show more or less the same thing. And this just shows you what's good and what isn't good. So generally, when we're talking about a voice call being good, we're trying to look at an R factor that's sort of above 80, 90 is good, and a MOT score sort of 4 and above. Okay, that's generally what we're looking at for good. So what was my factors that I got in my testing? Again, when we looked at MOTS, and actually I can flip between the MOTS and the R factor, they look the same graph because they're calculated from each other. But again, AX felt like it was much more consistent. Sometimes AC gave a better one, but there was definitely sometimes with AC, it didn't seem to provide that same consistency. So I will be genuinely honest, I was not expecting it, so I'm cynical when it comes to some of this stuff. But it did seem that OFDMA was providing more efficiency for voice. Now, I did 10 tests. I would love to do more testing. If anyone wants to sponsor me to do more testing, feel free. But that is at least what I found, and I thought that was interesting. So I wanted to share it with you. Thank you very much.